Hi Stampers, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. Today I'm going to show you how to create this fancy fold card. It looks like a flat card when the recipient receives it, but when they pull on the sides, it opens up to reveal this card. Isn't it neat how those folds, they open up and look like little shelves right here, but when you're ready to put it away, it folds like an accordion on both sides and actually folds flat. So I'm going to show you how to make this card, but I'm going to use different stamps and different pattern paper. You can see this one on my blog, and I'll try to remember to list the link right here on the video. So let's get started on the supplies you're going to need today. I also wanted to mention that I do have a pattern on my blog for the layers that you're going to need for the inside flaps. And I also have the pattern of the card that you can print from my blog. So let's get started on all the supplies we need. For stamp sets, we're using Star of Light, and I am using quite a few of the sentiments you'll see as we go. And then the little tiny snowflake image right here. And we're also using the Starlight Thinlits dies. I have a few missing here because I'll show you which ones I'm using. And those can be purchased as a bundle in the holiday catalog, where you save 10% if you bundle both pieces together. For ink colors, we're using Cherry Cobbler and Mint Macaron. We're using Rhinestone Jewels. And for cardstock, we're using Emerald Envy 5.5 by 10.5, and I'm going to show you how to score and fold that. Presents and Pine Cones designer paper, and I have two different patterns, two of each pattern that measure 1.5 by 5.25. This designer paper has been very popular. As you see, I have one sheet here that I've used all of it. But we have these 6 patterns. You have 6 more patterns on the reverse side. And I love the colors of green, the shades of greens that are in this designer paper. Very pretty paper. For layers, I've gone ahead and cut them ahead of time just to save time. This is the new copper foil sheets. They come in 12 by 12 sheets. And the paper is just beautiful. I've used this Thinlit die to cut a Whisper White layer. This is the little snowflake that I stamped with Mint Macaron, and I've cut it out with the coordinating die. And then I used my layering ovals framelits dies to cut out a Cherry Cobbler and an Emerald Envy. This is the largest size of the whole pack, and this is 2 sizes down from it. So that's all we're going to use for layers. And lastly, you're going to need your Simply Scored scoring tool. So let's, what I'm going to do first is prepare the designer paper layers. I've gone ahead and cut my pieces for my pattern. So for the center of the card, we're using the pattern to create a Whisper White layer. And then on the designer paper, I'm going to take 2 of the patterns, and because the angle is opposite, when you cut these, make sure you flip one over. So I'm just going to lay them on top of each other, put that pattern on top, and just trim my angles. If you keep the pattern paper the same, you're going to not be able to use them, because see, when you flip them over, they're opposite each other. So make sure you don't forget to do that. I'm going to bring in my ink pads, and I've decided I'm going to add a third color. I'm going to add the Emerald Envy. I'm making this card as we go. I don't have one of these made up ahead of time. And I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper, and we're going to get the center of the card ready. And the sentiment, I'm using 2 of them for the middle of my card. This one says Star of Wonder, Star of Night. So I'm going to use Cherry Cobbler. And stamp that at the top. And then the bottom one says, Guide us to thy perfect light. Whoops, put that one at the bottom. And then we're going to bring in this little swirly color, and I'm going to use the Mint Macaron. Just going to add from the edge of the paper a few swirls just like that. And then we're going to use the Emerald Envy to do this star image, which is beautiful. Okay, so that's the inside of my card. I'd like to add a little bit more color to the snowflakes. I'm going to close my Emerald Envy, squeeze the center, open it back up so I can use the ink in the ink well. And I'm just going to add a little bit of color just so it pops a little bit more. As I said, I'm doing this as I go, so I'm seeing things that I want to do that I didn't think of when I first started the video. Just going to fill in some of these areas. The Wink of Stella would look good on this too. Just a few more. Okay, I think I like how that looks. Okay, now let's get going on scoring and folding the card base. I'm going to bring in the Simply Scored scoring tool, and we're going to lay the Emerald Envy the long way this way. And now we're going to score at 1 3/4, 3 1/2, 7, and 8 3/4. Now we're going to bring in a ruler and a pencil, and on the 2 score lines on the inside, these 2 right here, you're just going to measure 1 inch and just add a little dot. So you're going to do that 4 times. And then you're also going to measure halfway, which is 5 1/4. You're going to add a dot on each side. So these are pretty easy measurements. There's no funky numbers to deal with. Then we're going to bring in your Stampin' Pierce mat. And you're going to join the center dot that you created, the 5 1/4 dot, with the first 1 inch dot. And the reason I'm using this score mat is because I'm creating a score line. And I'm using the larger ball on the end of my stylus. You're going to go to the other side. It's going to create a V. Okay, so that's what your first score line, the 2 that meet in the center, look like. Now you're going to use the 1 inch here and go to the top of the first score line. And on this side also. So what you end up with is a V this way and a V this way. We're going to do the same thing on this side. So there's the center mark to the 1 inch mark, and then the 1 inch mark to the top of your first score line. This would be a little difficult to do on your scoring tool. That's why the Stampin' Pierce mat comes in handy. Okay, so I hope you can see that. 2 V's. Now we're going to use the bone folder and fold all the score lines. And I always fold in both directions because we're going to actually end up folding this accordion style. It'll just make it more flexible. And then you need to score on these fold lines. And the easiest way I found is to just press ahead this way. And as you see, it kind of folds into each other. So do that on the opposite ends. And then you can just fold your cardstock over and press down. And then just lift and do the bottom one. See how easy that was? So that's your first side. You're going to do the same on this side. So just push it in. And as you push in, it's going to want to fold all on its own. See how easy that was? So now it folds flat for mailing. That's simple. Okay, now we're ready to decorate the card. So let's start with the designer paper strips. We're going to use the striped ones on the outside flaps. Oops, a little crooked. And then we'll do the second one. And then these are the ones with the angles that fit right in the scored areas. Oops. So this one's going to go right here. And then this is the fourth piece. And now we're going to glue the center piece. And this is the piece I'm going to add some rhinestones to. So I'm going to add one of the larger rhinestones in the center of my star, and then I'll put a couple of the smallest one into the swirly portions. I think I'll do one more. Okay, so that's what the card looks like so far. So far, so good. We are going to use that for the sentiment for the front of the card that says Merry Christmas. And I'm using cherry cobbler. I'm not going to trim the ends right now. I just want to assemble all the other pieces and I'll see how long I need it. So I'm going to glue my ovals together with Stampin' Dimensionals. Oops. I use a lot of dimensionals. You guys probably don't use as much as I do. Okay, so we're going to glue that together. Then we're going to add the copper star. And I'm going to lay that right in the middle. And then the white, I'm also going to glue that with a Stampin' dimensional, just one in the center. And the final one is the little mint macaron one. I'm just going to add glue and glue that to the very center. Okay, so that's the layer that's going to go to the front. Now I want to add the Merry Christmas right here. So I'm going to trim the ends into a notch. We'll see if that'll work for size. I think it will. So let's add glue to the middle. I'm just going to sit this right on the star. And I'm also going to add a rhinestone jewel, and I'll do the middle size this time for the middle of the star. So now all we have left to do is to glue this, and of course we want it to sit centered over the card like so. So you're only going to glue half of the oval. So let's add glue just to the half. About there. I'm going to fold this over just so I can eyeball it. And I'm actually going to move it up just a tad. Just hold it down for a little bit, and there's your card. See how that opens and closes, and this tucks under the layered portion. So that's my card for today. And again, we have the one that was on my blog that was with a fall theme. And I'll have pictures of both cards at the end of my video. And don't forget to visit my blog. I'll have the address so you can go click on the pattern and print the pattern and the instructions both. And I'll list all the supplies I used on today's card. Thanks so much for visiting. Have a good day.